Hi, this is Alex Hyde-White. You're listening to the FSF Podcast.
The show that made Reed Richards stretch out his arm from the other room to change the channel in efforts to preserve his IQ.
Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund, which supports the Wish Upon a Teen Foundation that helps out sick kids when they need it most. And just imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt crewman number 4. He'll know that when he puts on the red shirt and joins the Fantastic Four in their battle against Dr. Doom, that he didn't leave his family destitute and without hope, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back, and what's left of his super suit.
All right, kids and cadets, I'm kind of excited. We have a guest waiting here for us that has starred in some really popular movies, some of the most popular movies actually in cinematic history, and some of the biggest cult classics you've ever seen. He was young Henry Jones in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which is one of my all-time personal favorite movies. He's been Reed Richards, a.k.a. Mr. Fantastic, in the Fantastic Four movie in the early to mid-'90s. And you've seen him in shows like Pretty Woman, Catch Me If You Can, with starred Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio, and a few other things that are really exciting to talk about. But with a resume like this, we are very excited to welcome Alex Hyde-White to the FSF Podcast. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Hey, guys. Thanks. How you doing?
We're doing very well. Better now that you're here and we get a chance to talk with you. So,
how about them Lions, huh?
Woohoo!
They're in.
You know, it's exciting because we haven't had a winning football team in Michigan in I don't know how long, and even though, excuse me, even though we're only one game above 500, we'll take it because there was some serious improvement this year. So, yay!
3 wins in a row. That was like,
yeah, good.
Euphoric. It was euphoric. That's what it was.
Go play the lottery.
I almost did. It was strongly considered.
Well done.
So Alex, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is a movie that's played regularly at our house. It's a favorite of my wife and I's, and Nick already knows this. I love Harrison Ford. I think he's the greatest actor to ever walk the face of the earth, and so much so that my son's middle name is Harrison. And so I've always thought it was kind of cool in The Last Crusade that there was the flashback to young Henry and seeing how he became who he became and all these different things. And now it's kind of cool for me because that was you. And, I think this might actually get my wife to watch the interview. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But if you can, talk to us about how that role in Indiana Jones came to be and what has your involvement in what I like to call the Indieverse. What has your involvement in the Indiana Jones series, the Indieverse, meant to you over the years?
Well, at the time, there's sort of always a debate going on when you're an actor sort of getting started and starting to get work, that if you take sort of small parts, cameos, that gives the agents a bit of a heartache. And so with the exception, there's got to be a really good reason. And it was interesting, really, because a friend of mine, an agent who didn't really represent me, recommended me to the casting director, famous casting director named Mike Fenton, that they were just looking for someone to play young Sean Connery. And so I went in. I'm just an open book. When I was a young actor, I was just wanting to get traction, and the idea of working in an Indiana Jones movie, it doesn't matter. I'm there, and we do the audition, and it's junior, count to 20 in Greek, and Mike says, "Hey, great, that's good, Alex, thanks a lot," and off you go. And then about 4 days later, I guess they send the tape to wherever they are. And, it's an Indiana Jones movie, and it's getting closer to LA, which means it's almost done, because they're starting like in Afghanistan or somewhere. They travel the world when they made those movies. Mm-hmm. So they said that Mike wants to see you. Steven needs to see you again. Mike wants you to come back in. And so I go, okay, great. So I go over to Universal, and then they have a chair facing the other way. And they said, "Alex, Steven really likes you for this. He just needs to see the cut of your jib," which means turn around. And I did the rest I did the same thing, only, I don't know, I'm going to bring everything with me. I did the same thing, only now, Junior, count to 20. You know, it was that. In Greek, may he who illuminates this illuminate me, you know, that kind of thing. So it's kind of gone down in my history as, you know, I'm not even in the movie. And I had to audition with my back to the camera. So that story alone just is a complete illustration of how crazy this business is. And then you throw in that it's actually a Steven Spielberg Indiana Jones movie, and in some sort of way it makes sense because, you know, they are so good at making those movies. I mean, they're still making them, and the rest of the business is sort of caught up. That you don't really need to audition. They just need to know that, you know, you can stand up, you can sit down. In my instance, you can turn around, and you have the sort of the cadence to do it. And once you're in, it's kind of like qualifying for the pro golf tour or something. Once you're in, you're part of that magic. You're part of that universe. That, what do you call it? The what did you call it? The Raiders verse or something? The Indieverse.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm there for a couple of days, and George Lucas is there, the best cameraman in the business. Everybody, I knew the second assistant director, a famous fellow named Artist Robinson, because I'd worked on a TV show for the Navy called Super Carry the year before. So, you know, I'm amongst friends, and River Phoenix was lovely. He wasn't even 18 years old yet, and he had a friend up, and he was thirsty for some beer one night, and so we went out and got some Mexican food, and, you know, it was 3 days of my life, but it's kind of like an invitation to the kind of movie business that we all want to be in, particularly me. You know, Steven makes, you know, films. He certainly made sort of boys films in terms of, you know, just like the old Hardy Boys captured a certain generation, or certain Western serials captured. Steven's movies sort of reflected, and maybe it's come out now in the Fablemans. Is that his family movie now about his upbringing?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's come out that his sensibilities were very much, you know, like that. Peter Pan. So it was really funny, you know, because I got up there and I'm sitting with him, and we're talking about Close Encounters, and, you know, these are the days when it's called analog filmmaking, which won't mean anything to FSF unless some of them are really S, and understand that this was one shot at a time filmmaking, and everything needed to be coordinated and put in place before you rolled the cameras. You didn't simply turn on a video camera. And even Avatar, I mean, it's just shoot it. And no wonder it took him 10 years. It probably took him 8.5 years to cut it. Have you seen the thing? It's wonderful. But, you know, so, you know, we're waiting because we'd done River's part earlier in the day, where, you know, that lovely tracking shot, which ends on the name on the mailbox, and then River comes in huffing and puffing. We do his angle, and we turn around, but we had to move like, I don't know, a half mile down the road because they built this pop-out sort of window. And we go in to rehearse, and they say, Steven and I are out there, two guys in a director's chair talking, and they say, okay, we're ready, Governor, because they're all English. He loved the English crews. Oh, Gov, we're ready. And we come on in, and we're rehearsing, and he goes, okay, guys, we've got about 4 minutes, otherwise we're back here same time tomorrow. And then you realize, of course, what you're doing. You are certainly, well, you're sharing the shot with the greatest source of light known to man, because the setting sun is 93 million miles away, just about to hit its horizon on the Colorado plain, which is a John Ford shot. It's a Steven Spielberg shot. And, you know, right away, it does two things to everybody. It sharpens the focus, but also takes the attention away from us. If we can participate in a moment correctly, we will capture nature, which is what, you know, great filmmakers do. And then, of course, it's how do you do it? And then it's the same thing that I did. And because Mike Fenton had turned me around in the second audition, I was prepared. It wasn't so much that Steven needed to see that I could say it twice, once backwards. It's just that we might really not have the time to rehearse it like that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Let's get in
Right.
there. I'm coming in and thinking I'm a character eyes and got my eyes and everything. I've got some special makeup. Actually, kid, we're turning you around. You know what I mean? And up came my hand. Count Junior. And Stephen goes, okay, guys, Alex, do that again. Boom. And so all of a sudden, my finger and the sun are in the shot. I think, hey, this is getting pretty good, you know? And, you know, we got it. David Tomlin, a famous AD, was very happy. Saw me in the bar. Yeah, you want to meet an English, anybody who works in the English film industry, be in any hotel bar at about 7:30 at night. And they're there. Lovely. Good job, Alex. And I was done. I mean, that was my day. I went out, I think I went on a horse ride or something. And the job has just lived on forever because they were so nice to me. They gave me like sixth billing in the movie, and there's a cast of like 200 people.
Yeah.
And it was just really lovely. And so people thought, were you Fedora? No, that was Richard Young. Or what were you? Or you were, oh, but you really? Was that your finger? I go, yeah, that was me. And you know what? That's good enough. It's in the indieverse. So I learned early on, and it kind of really lay the foundation for what I thought my story needed to be when I wrote my book recently. It's the experiences. It's a peak. When you're a mountain climber, you want to relay. Everybody wants to know, if anybody's interested, they want to know about the peaks. They want to know about the K2, the Kilimanjaro, the Indiana Jones, the Pretty Woman, the Catch Me If You Cans. And in order to get to those peaks, you know, there's lots of slips and falls, lots of near misses, lots of, the trip was canceled, lots of, weather canceled it, or, you know, I just didn't have it that day. So the ability to relay those peak moments, especially in such a film that has its fans, you know, if you do a good job in something, it doesn't matter what you do. It becomes the property of the audience. It becomes a property of the fans, of which in this instance are, you know, innumerable. And so it earned me my props with Stephen, and he had me back for 2 other jobs. Not that he came seeking me. It just sort of stars aligned again. And when my name's on a list, and if I'm right for the part, he says yes, and he looks forward to seeing me. So I hope that continues. But it's certainly, it taught me early on the value of what ostensibly could just be a small part, you know.
That's a fantastic answer. That's really cool.
I'm glad you're not on film, otherwise you'd have to change reels right now.
The joy of digital.
So speaking of the science in the science part of FSF, another fun movie that you were in was The Fantastic Four as Dr. Reed Richards in 1994. So special effects back then usually came in the form of practical effects rather than computer-generated effects, which is almost, but not quite lost, of an art. And so today people would call practical effects cheesy, but, you know, for its time, practical effects were, you know, amazing. So I'm curious on a couple things. Did you get to control like the special effects of like the arm stretching, and like I can think of a few ways of how they would do that, but like how did they do like the arm stretch?
Well, for me, there was working backwards, and bearing in mind this is a Roger Corman film, so working backwards would be, and then you CGI the arm going 15 feet, okay? Oh, well, we'll see. We'll have to wait to get to that one. So really all you're concerned about with is getting that arm like in position and then moving as much as, like you say, the contraption with its weight and with its throw. And I seem to remember that it was a bit of a hydraulic, that it was on my shoulder, sort of like a backpack. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, of course, you know, the actor on action, you go, or, you know, whatever her name is, Susan, you know, and there you see my arm, and then you cut to another angle, and then the arm extends about 18 inches or whatever it was, and it's somebody probably blowing on a pipe or something. God knows. I'll just know it was obviously an unpaid intern, but anyway. And so then they do that, and then you cut, and they did put some CGI in, and there's some wonderful. I think in the film there's a wonderful shot of us driving away after just getting married, where kind of like this sort of stick arm comes up through the limousine, but nobody saw that, because two things have happened. Nobody's seen the movie, and nobody's ever seen the whole thing, so we're okay. But effects used to be fun. They were very actor driven, and the more you can do. And Tom Cruise says he likes to do his own stunts. And, he said, well, what's the stunt? Actually, he's going to go up a ramp and then fly off of his motorcycle in a parachute. Yeah, he's going to have to do that. There's no way around that. And that's kind of great to see. And even the wonderful Maverick film, I mean, that was jets, guys, how much of it was shot up in the air or not. I mean, that was pretty darn good. A lot of it had to be real. And so that used to be one of the draws, I think, of wanting to work in film. Either build those scenes as a technician, as an art director, or be the last one, like with actors, like I was in Battlestar Galactica, the last one to say, "Hey, I'm flying jets in space. Actually, Alex, you're going to be sitting on a little Apple box in front of a green screen, and don't shake your head because we only have one helmet." It's kind of harshes your mellow, but that was it, and you had to work with what was there. And I think this great presumption that it's all going to be added on, it's all going to be either, it used to be fixed in post, and somebody said, actually, son, there won't be any post on this movie. It's going to be CGI will take care of it. And it's easy to see the shortcomings when filmmakers rely on CGI taking care of it. I mean, it's not quite, plastic dinosaurs in 10,000 years BC, but we know bad effects when we see it,
Right.
So it was a throwback. I mean, Fantastic Four was right. When did we make it? 93. It was right at that cusp. I think Roger didn't really care, didn't want to be the first kind of Marvel movie of the modern era, but Jim Cameron had been trying to do Spider-Man for a couple of years. They just had to throw in the towel because they just didn't have the bandwidth computer-wise to do it. So when Fantastic Four came along, I guess they just went with what they had because they sort of had to do it. There was a timing issue. And I think they fell back, and like we still fall back when I call them, on the sort of inherent, what's the word, creakiness, or the inherent dysfunction in the four, is kind of, you used the term earlier, in an analog way. It's supposed to be campy in a way.
Campy can be fun though.
You can excuse that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if campy is the right word. I mean, what's the one? The man-eating plant. Rocky Horror is campy. But Fantastic Four is kind of shrouded in an innocence that allows for a certain naivete in the lead characters, which sort of slows things down a bit, and it means that it has to be more character driven, which might be the problem with the Fantastic Four franchise, is that there's too much character for special effects movies.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I look at the Fantastic Four movie honestly a lot like I do the Flash Gordon movie.
Yeah.
From back in the late 70s.
Sam Jones.
Yeah, with Sam Jones.
Yeah.
To me, that was campy, but it was fun campy. It was fun.
Yeah,
campy.
But I mean, they actually have a guy. Yeah, don't they have like some villain who's like got a fur hat on or some horns or something? Yeah, right. Yeah,
and there's all these.
We had Doctor Doom. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's all these practical effects in that as well because they didn't have that option back then either.
Yeah.
And that to me, it just speaks to the age of the film more than whether the film is good or bad or not. But I think it also makes for an enjoyable watch, and it's kind of fun sometimes to watch those practical effects be used in the right way.
Well, when I was finishing up my contract at Universal, God, I was 21 years old, so this would have been like 1980, 81. There were two shows It started out as one show. It started out as Battlestar Galactica, Lorne Greene, sort of wagon train in space, And it was Star Wars for TV. ABC thought it was going to be a big hit. And, it didn't have the charm of a Star Trek, and it didn't have the element of surprise of Star Wars. But what it did have was a pretty earnest kind of Western in space, but it just didn't take with the audience. It was kind of a little heavy. And Lou Wasserman, who ran Universal at the time, was reminded that they owned Buck Rogers, the rights to Buck Rogers.
Oh, yeah.
And what they did was basically turned a lot of the sets upside down, repainted them, and in the same soundstage started making Buck Rogers in the 25th century, you see?
Nice.
And they infused it was Gil Gerard instead of Richard Hatch. And, it had that sort of light comedic or even light drama flair to it. And then they had Tom Christopher as the Birdman, and my father actually played Dr. Goodfellow for a while, and he was known for, being anything except serious. He was rather irreverent and was quite funny. And that show, I think, when you see it now, like you say, it's dated for its production value, but the show works.
Yep.
It kind of like was the right temperature, was the right it had the right sort of buoyancy, if that's a word that means anything, outside the lab. Whereas Galactica ended up being a disappointment, except for Dirk Benedict, of course, who became a star and went on to the A-Team. So, I think especially in the world that you know so well, and I've delved in a bit as an actor, you've got to be respectful of this sort of sci-fi audience. They want to enjoy it, and they want to tell you what it is. And I think the trouble with the original Galactica was that it was sort of forced upon everybody. It was just too dramatic, and it wasn't. Yeah. Whereas it's funny when those lighter things sometimes work.
Absolutely.
It was made Pretty Woman the hit. You could have put Pretty Woman could have been such a heavy story that it never would have gotten over the element of glamorizing prostitution, but they lightened it and cast it correctly, and so
exactly.
The audience. If the audience is entertained, then you can forgive a lot of story elements. It's not so much about issues or it's more about just the feeling people have when they experience it.
Agreed.
Okay,
so
well,
Alex.
Great. Good talking to you. Thanks. Take care. See ya.
Alex, I start off a lot of our interviews typically trying to find out about the backstory of the origin story of our guest. Now, since I was too excited about ask about Indiana Jones first, this question had to wait. So if you wouldn't mind humoring me a little bit, can you tell us what influenced you to get to the point where you thought that a career in the performing arts is what you wanted to do?
Well, I was a smart young fella, precocious, rather annoying, and I don't think that I've completely lost the last two. I'm rather precocious. I don't know how smart I am anymore, but I accelerated through school rather quickly. And in the Palm Springs Unified School District of the late 60s and mid 70s, it wasn't necessarily difficult to do that. However, I found myself at age 16, graduating high school. Kind of at the same time, my mom wishes she was going to be leaving town too. So the home life wasn't going to be worth sticking around. They wanted me out. And I knew some people in Washington because I'd been there before. My dad had done a play there, and I liked that. I suppose it was very similar. But so I got into Georgetown at age 16 and froze my tush off. I just didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I left there. So I was kind of rudderless when I was 17, 18 years old, and came back to the desert where I grew up, working in restaurants. And, before long, I found myself auditioning for Battlestar Galactica at Universal. So, if it hadn't have been sort of crapping out at college and, I ended up being in the right place at the right time. And I just was very lucky that they were, again, like I said before, they were expecting Battlestar Galactica to to certainly, pay its own way. And they were looking to hire a few boys, put them under contract to fly jets in space, and I was one of them. And I felt that I had the skill set for it. I grew up in the theater. I grew up in the theater in the sense that my dad was a British actor, and that the theater is completely different. As I told about the audition for Young Henry Jones, film and TV acting is about compartmentalizing moments, and in my book or in retelling of them, they're moments, they're peak moments. Stage acting is more about sort of having a career, not pissing people off, understanding that theatrical institutions are quite often run by demagogues, even before Kevin Spacey rewrote the definition of that. And you end up having to work with a whole group of people. Quite often one feels are, dumber than, anyway. Where in movies, it's different. It's filling moments. And I just liked that in sort of a chemistry way. So I'd been around the industry enough, and I'd been on some TV sets. And, my dad was a very, very well-known in England, and he was a good character actor, a lot older than me. And once he was hired to do the pilot of Galactica, along with Ray Milland, who was a big, big film star in the 50s and 60s, they were the head of the Council of 12. It was really a council of 2 and then 10 other guys named Joe. It was, it was fine. And then I went to be his sort of assistant. They call it, my man isn't, Mike Lally, my man is not available because he's working for Peter Falk. Could you come down? And like I said, I was like selling real estate up in the desert. And I said, yeah, sure. And the agent who handled my dad, who was sending me out things, he said, hey, Universal Casting wants to see you. And guys, I gave a good audition. I mean, I wanted it. I wanted it more than I thought, because consciously when you want something and you then sense, there's nothing worse, like the Eminem song, take advantage of this moment, it's never going to come again. Oh, don't, that's going to scare the hell out of me. Don't do that. It might not even be here now. Just it's really weird. I ended up kind of wanting it, but not so much consciously. I felt I'd found a home in a funny sort of way, and it worked. And I just never found anything better to do. I've done lots of other little things to keep the fires burning, but it was an entry into a wonderful way to live and occasionally make a living. And it just so happened that I sort of grew up at the time that American films from the 70s, they were into the auteur and the wonderful films, and the French Connection and The Godfather, all of these things would come out of nowhere. And then the advent of indie films with Sundance, and then offshoots. And now we are in a 400 channel universe, and there's nothing to watch. Everybody's saying what's on Netflix and Prime Video. It's almost come back to 4 or 5 studios. Right. But to have been in several versions of that journey, it's uniquely satisfying, and I'm glad I don't have to do it again. I think it'd be very hard. I was just lucky to be a part of that evolving, that sort of maturation of like you say, American pop culture. It's not film, it's not TV, it's not collectibles. It's pop culture, and that's I'm a part of it, and I'm thankful for it. Otherwise, I'd be still running the elevator at the Senate office building. Hey, how you doing? Hey, you're the first person I voted for. Yeah, I'm still here. Can you believe it? Yeah. Where are you going? One of my 6 houses. Okay, thank you, Congressman. We don't talk politics. The 3 things you never talk when you're running a show: religion, politics, and the Great Pumpkin.
Well, great. Now I have to cut all that out. Well, speaking of journeys, you wrote a book called In the Volume, and tell us a little bit about your book and what we can expect from it.
Look at the cover art.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I had a guy who contacted me, and I was thinking of sort of making a graphic novel and whatnot. And he sent this, and I go, "Oh no, this is the cover of the book." Well, I wrote this book as a chronicle, almost like you would write a TV show in a way. I separated it into 5 seasons, and there's like episodes instead of chapters. And
Hmm.
season one is called Star Wars, because it's Star Wars is what motivated me and a lot of people to get into the game. It's sort of a gathering aspect of my life. And then season two was Patriot Games, which I think is a wonderful film. You talk about Harrison Ford and
Mm-hmm.
analog filmmaking. You see a film like Patriot Games, I think it was Mace Neufeld directed, and it's a classic. And there's no special effects in it except maybe a wind and a rainstorm and some boat tricks at the end. It's just a wonderful adventure, thriller movie. And so season two for me is Patriot Games, and that's sort of a quickening. After a gathering, sort of comes a quickening when things start to find their attachments. Season three is another great film for me. It was Heat. Michael Mann is a wonderful filmmaker. I call that my flowering in a way. It's getting a bit gardening, gathering, quickening, flowering. Season three. Season four is The Great Escape, which tell me you didn't see that at a 50-cent Saturday matinee. I mean, it's just classic.
I did not see
And
that at a 50-cent
no,
matinee.
no. And then season five is Last of the Mohicans, and that's my deliverance. And I kind of feel in a way that I'm a bit like Chingachgook, in that I'm part of certainly of a tribe or of a sect of actors who, because I started young enough and I've had the good fortune to live, 50, 45 years as an actor, 44 years as an actor, that I deserve or I'm qualified to tell my story in a way. It's like a history book. It's a lot of it is a history of the pop culture that I lived through and observed on film sets and TV sets, and of course, rather like the peaks to the mountain, the peaks and valleys. It's a lot of the in between, personal as well. But in the volume, which is now out on Amazon and Audible. I did the audiobook as well because I do a lot of audiobooks. I have an audiobook production company. In the volume came to me when I was doing the last and the third and the last, hopefully not forever, of Stephen's films, Tintin, about, I don't know, 10 years ago now. I learned what that phrase means, and it's a digital reference to being in the shot, as an analog filmmaker says, "Okay, Alex, a little to the right, a little to the right. Okay, now you're out. What, you want me out of the shot? Yes, please, but we need you for, okay, good, I'm out of the shot. Thank you. Good, I've got it." This time it's not this time it's a technician or an engineer who comes up, "Alex, you're in the volume and like we need, okay, just so step out. Yeah, please." Because the volume captures the action. It's digital bandwidth. And they'll have like 11 or 12 or 15 cameras in a basketball basketball court size stage, capturing everything from 360 degrees. And so if you're in the volume, you're pulling energy. And conversely, if you're in the volume, you better be doing something worthwhile. So I just thought it was a great metaphor for, being an actor in this era. Is sometimes it seems easy, and they've made filmmaking easy and more accessible, and that's great. But you gotta have a reason for being in there, because a lot of people want to be in the volume. For every one person there, there's 5 or 10. You just look at the credits on these movies. There's 50 or 100 doing special effects, and they're all contributing to making you look better. So when you're in there, it's a feeling of great responsibility and great joy. And I feel rather like with writing this book, I feel that I've earned the opportunity and the right to sort of talk about it. And it's 20,000 words, and a lot of them are pretty okay.
Yeah. I was looking at some of your episode titles, like A Ham and the Lynn Twins.
Oh, Ham and the Lynn Twins.
I'm
Oh, do you have the book?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
recently
yeah.
just got it on Audible, so
Oh, great.
I'll be working my way through it here soon.
Oh,
But
good. You got the audiobook, did you?
I did, yes.
Oh, great. Good. There's fun music on it. A band from a German band, I think, is the music. Yeah, yeah. Ham and the Lynn Twins. You like that one? And then there's Big Casino, Little Casino. There's some, yeah. On the Lot a Lot. Yeah, I mean, like I
Yeah,
said, I was a precocious young fella.
yeah. And like they say don't judge a book by its cover. Well, I'm judging it by its episodes, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna like this book.
Um,
So
okay, let me quiz you. Episode 30, Stuff's Getting Better. What movie is that line from? And who says it? It's Kevin Costner in The Postman.
Is that from the Postman? Okay.
Yeah, stuff's getting better. The Postman is just, they give me a hard time for being an Ishtar. I mean, Costner
Right.
is the greatest actor since Harrison Ford that we've created, and they gave him a hard time for Waterworld and The Postman. And you look at him and you just think, God, it's stuff's getting better. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, no, thanks, guys. Yeah, you'll like it. I mean, you're in the content world. You're creating stuff. Hopefully, your audience is smiling when they hear us riff about stuff like this.
I think
I'm happy. I was happy to be involved, to feel like I helped make some of it, and you guys are keeping it going, and we're all in the same game. But it's up to the audience. It's up to them. They'll tell us whether it was worthwhile or not.
Right.
All right, Alex, we have one final question for you, okay?
Sure.
And so we end our episodes with either a quiz or a silly question. And so today we're going to ask you the silly question.
Okay. Well, we just had the quiz.
Well, we've had the quiz, exactly.
Yeah.
So now you've already performed as Dr. Reed Richards from the Marvel Universe. So we're going to switch over towards DC a little bit. If you had to choose, would you choose to be Batman or Robin? And why?
I would be Batman because, as you know, I look okay in a blue spandex. I don't know about the red and green.
The question is, do you have the legs to perform as Robin in the classic outfit? So.
Yeah, no. I'm built like a Welsh archer. I'm all torso. So no.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think that's an acceptable answer as to why to be Batman.
Come in handy at the Battle of Agincourt. Yeah.
Other than the bank account, that's a good answer. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you and your works, and where to find your book?
Well, IMDb is a great source. My website, Alex Hyde-White, with or without the hyphen. The hyphen is the most difficult part in this computer age, but I'm out there. I've got a nice website. The book is anywhere. The book is Amazon's probably the best. Amazon and Audible. And if people go to my website and they want an autographed copy, it's easy. It's easy to ask. I'm really happy. It's there's a lot of celebrity biographies out nowadays, especially the last couple of years. All these actors had to figure out a way to sustain their lifestyle, and so they ended up talking about their peccadillos and about their what's the word? Their addictions and their facial reconstruction. I don't have any of that. I mean, and if I do, I'm not going to admit it. So my story is about sort of everybody else, people that I worked with, and the funny things. And of course, it's about my crashes and burns. But I mean, that's what an actor is. The cautionary tale is when someone would always ask me, "Hey, I'm going to move out to Hollywood," or "My son's moving to Hollywood. Do you have any advice?" I'd say, "Yeah, take Fountain. Traffic's better." It's kind of that kind of world. And then, of course, the New York actor would say to you, I'm thinking of trying Hollywood. He said, "Well, yeah, why not?" He says, "Well, I'm just not really working here much in New York." And I said, "Well, then you'll love Hollywood because nobody works. You'll be fine." So,
right in.
it's a crazy business. And you need to be a decent cook and a decent driver. And now, with Grubhub, hell, you can cook them and deliver them and still be an actor and do your audition at the same time. Anyway, so that's the kind of style that that's what I'm writing. I'm writing crap like this. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm writing material like this. So
wonderful.
There you go.
Wonderfully written material such as this. Yes.
Yeah. All right. I'm here till Thursday. Try the veal.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, guys. Go Lions.
Subscribing is the single most important thing that you can do to ensure that we get more amazing guests like Alex Hyde-White here today for funny moments you'll be able to listen to. So please subscribe. It helps us more than you'll ever be able to know, and more importantly than we'll ever be able to know. But make sure you go to Alex's website, check out his book, get a signed copy of it. I think you'll like that. Now, if you, for whatever reason, you were not happy with the content of our show today, please feel free to lodge a complaint with the head of our complaint department. That, of course, is Reed Richards, a.k.a. Mr. Fantastic. He is literally the long arm of the law. Seriously, he can stretch out his arm to wherever he needs to smack some sense into someone. But he's also a genius, a certifiable genius, so you're really only going to need to send one copy of your complaint, and rest assured that he will not only file it properly, but his long, stretchy arm of justice will reach out and smack some sense into whoever needs it. And knowing this group, I'm going to go ahead and get the cold pack ready. I'm getting a 5-star on the face. It's about what that's going to happen. We know that. So keep that in mind if you decide to report us. Look, we like to act like we're big bad podcasters, but we're really wimps and softies on the inside, so don't hurt us.
Well, thanks again, Alex.
Johnny, keep that fire going. You might need it. All right,
Thank
boys.
you, Alex. This has been a lot of fun. We really appreciate it.
Thanks. I do a lot of these. This has been fun. Thanks a lot, guys. Good luck to you.
All right. Thank you.
Ciao.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of the FSF Podcast, we want to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on a future episode, please contact us by means of Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FSFPopcast, or go to www.fsfpopcast.com and click on the Contact Me link. Thanks again, and hope you enjoyed the episode.
Copyright 2023 FSF Popcast.
Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Popcast. The views expressed by the guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpopcast.com. Original music by Jordan Michaels.